Thank you for joining us for today's ABA Civil Rights and Social Justice Program, How Things Work, the Legal Edition, which is a rapid response project that addresses how our civil rights are being impacted by actions being taken by the new administration. My name is Nathan Bruemmer. I am an attorney in Florida, a council member for the section of Civil Rights and Social Justice, and chair of this project. I am thrilled to welcome you to this conversation today. These videos are a unique opportunity to address what is happening in America today, clarify any misinformation or disinformation being spread, and give us a chance to talk about how civil rights and social justice advocates can act to protect the rights of everyone. Today's topic, judicial consequences, is more critical than ever. As we confront the pattern of actions or attacks by the current federal administration directed towards the judiciary, it is essential we examine the consequences of these actions, how these issues intersect with the principles of justice and equity can and should guide the work of our section and the ABA generally. We're honored to have with us today Judge Nancy Gertner, retired, currently a senior lecturer on law at Harvard Law School. Judge Gertner was appointed to the bench in 1994 by President Clinton. In September of 2011, she retired and became part of the faculty of Harvard, teaching a number of subjects, including criminal law, criminal procedure, forensic science, and sentencing, as well as continuing to teach and write about women's issues around the world. And throughout her career, Judge Gertner has received a number of well-deserved awards, including from the ABA. Highlighting just two of those, in 2014, she received the Margaret Brent Women Lawyers of Achievement Award from the Commission on the Status of Women in the Profession. And in 2008, she received the Thurgood Marshall Award, being only the second woman to receive it, Justice Ginsburg being the first. And as I was researching both the topic and Judge Gertner's resume, I actually was really, it struck a chord. I need to read this book. I have not read it yet, Judge Gertner, but the title of your autobiography in this moment just seems remarkably powerful. In Defense of Women, Memoirs of an Unrepentant Advocate. May we be considered an unrepentant advocate, but that's also out there. Clearly, her expertise and dedication in the profession to the rule of law and in educating the next generation in our profession have made her a leader in the field, and we are grateful for her willingness to share her insights with us. So, without further ado, Judge Gertner, let's dive in. We've seen recent administrative actions going well beyond the typical tensions we might expect in branches of government, or the Monday morning quarterbacking, everyday folks might make on judicial decisions. We're seeing intentional and repetitive attacks on the judiciary. Share with us your thoughts on the administrative actions and where we are today as what we're seeing coming out of this federal administration.
It's wonderful to be here. I think that this is something that we all should be talking about to everyone. So the Trump administration has excoriated the judges who have found against him in cases involving dismantling agencies, which is something Congress has the right to do, firing people who with ignoring requirements as to notice, doing reductions in force and not following the rules, those things having to do with the government. So that's one bucket. Another bucket are those things having to do with civil society, which is the institutions that really distinguish our democracy, that are an antidote to government action. The law firms, the universities. So this administration has gone after law firms in a way that makes it perfectly clear that it's not a question of DEI, even broadly defined. It's a question of trying to defang and dismantle institutions that were representing Democrats or challenges to the Trump administration. Law firms are a powerful representative of the civil society. And then finally is this lunatic challenge to Harvard, and in particular, the most recent one trying to stop Harvard from being able to enroll international students, again, ostensibly because of anti-Semitism, although the anti-Semitism issue has nothing to do with the international students. And in succeeding letters to Harvard, it's clear that they're talking about their view of anti-Americanism, that they're asking for more than just curing anti-Semitism, and there are ways of doing that, but intruding into Harvard's decision as to whom to hire, when to hire, what should be taught, etc. The judicial response to this has been extraordinary, and extraordinary, I think, not because the judges involved are all members of one party. In fact, the judges' response have gone across parties. It doesn't matter who the appointing judge was. It doesn't matter whether there was senior judge. It doesn't matter whether it was Reagan, Bush, Biden, Clinton, Obama. It doesn't matter. And I think the reason is not because of the judges involved, but because the administration, what the administration is doing is so far from lawful that one doesn't have to be affiliated with one side or the other to acknowledge that. One only has to be, in my view, a sentient human being. And so there has been, and I forgot the other bucket was the immigration bucket, the notion that you have a right to simply deport people. And your listeners should understand that the deportations to El Salvador are not just getting them out of the United States, it's subjecting the individuals who were deported to effectively life without parole. There's nothing in the law that enables the government to do that. So the reaction to judges doing what they should do, which is really monitoring the boundaries of an out of control executive, is to call them deranged, is to call them activists, is to call for their impeachment, which then has led to threats against judges that we have never seen before. To the credit of the bench, those threats are not stopping anything, and I predict that they won't. So this is something we all should. This is a really lawless administration, and our jobs are to make sure that that lawlessness is stopped.
No, I appreciate that 30,000-foot view with all of those buckets, because the opportunity, the due process, the place where we come when we have these moments is the courtroom. And so that's why today's topic, when we sort of drill down, the only place to go is before the court and to have that case heard. So keeping that in mind with all of those topics, and that's just a cursory, broad look at all of those things. We have, numerous trackers for both litigation and executive orders that have been created by a number of law firms and other organizations. But stepping down to the everyday impacts, what does that look like if I'm just an everyday American and I need to engage with the courts? And then more broadly, what are the impacts on our civil rights and liberties in the short term and maybe long term if we don't find a pathway out of where we are right now?
Well, I think certainly the people in the United States now who feel the most vulnerable are visitors here, are people who are not American citizens, even people with green cards. I got a call the other day from someone who says, I'm a naturalized citizen. Am I going to have trouble getting back into the country? So within a group of either people who are not citizens and are here lawfully under various visas, as well as newly naturalized citizens, there's a climate of fear that this administration has enabled. Part of that climate of fear is the extraordinary and outrageous challenge to birthright citizenship, which could not be clearer. Constitution says all persons born in the United States. And the notion that the Supreme Court is even taking this challenge seriously is troubling to me. So there's certainly an atmosphere of fear with respect to visitors. There is an atmosphere of fear even with respect to citizens. People are calling about, should I get a burner phone when I go abroad so the government doesn't look into my look at my what I'm reading and who I'm communicating with. The fact that they've taken on Harvard which is clearly not remotely because of anti-Semitism. Really, I can't say that enough. That is a fig leaf. Harvard, there were issues at Harvard. Harvard was addressing those issues, but the attacks on Harvard go far beyond that. The students that I'm teaching law to don't know what to do next and don't know where to go next. I think it then is incumbent on all of us to, first of all, call it for what it is, which is a lawless administration. Call it both politically, call it out in terms of litigation. I think that really is silence is the wrong thing here. And believing that the storm will pass is the wrong thing here as well. So, I mean, I think the lawyers have to be mobilized, as many are, to represent the immigrants that are being challenged. The man who was going in for his citizenship interview and was taken away by ICE. The ICE agent who interrupted a state trial to arrest someone as if the state proceedings are somehow irrelevant to this administration. And the judges who are being directly attacked, most recently, the judge in Wisconsin who was arrested. I believe it was Rabbi Heschel who said that the worst thing is not evil, but indifference, and we cannot be indifferent.
Yes, indeed. So then we get to what can we do, right? And borrowing from your buckets, we have those of us in the profession who are attorneys or in the judiciary. We've got everyday folks, but you also highlighted the future, right? As a professor, what the experience may be like for law students in this particular historic moment. Speak to what we can do to address these impacts in any or all of these roles. Pursuing, cases and not adhering to something. As you and I both know, executive orders are not law. And a lot of folks are balking at the idea of pursuing their due process rights, I think, under false assumptions. What can we do?
Well, for lawyers, there are numbers of organizations across the country. Lawyers Defending Democracy is one, the State Democracy Defenders, Protect Democracy, who are lining up to both represent individuals who are the subject of deportation or individuals who are whose grants have been terminated without any basis, representing individuals. Then there are law firms that are representing institutions, like the law firms representing Harvard or representing law firms. And then I think there is there are op-eds to be written because this really can't be normal. If we normalize this, we have dramatically undermined our democracy. So there are op-eds to be written, letters to the editor to be written. I think that there's political pressure to be asserted against our elected officials. Really treating this as normal would be the worst thing. This is not normal. So for lawyers, and the lawyers need to step up to the plate and represent the guy across the street who has a green card and is suddenly being challenged by ICE. Represent the judge around the corner whose trial is being upended for no apparent reason, and represent the profession that is being squeezed by the Trump administration to stop representing his opponents. This is really not what democracy looks like. And I think lawyers have to both act as lawyers and act as citizens to defend democracy here.
Yes, yes. On my desk, I mean, I've had it for a long time, but well, it's blurred out, but it's my mini version of the Constitution. We all took con law as 1Ls, and it's the basis of all the work that we do in the profession, but very few of us are experts. And I think there's a moment right now that is deepening for many of us, our appreciation of, and maybe a relearning, which is part of why we enjoy and appreciate hearing from experts like you as a part of this project to continue our learning. I think for me, in my lifetime, this is sort of that most important constitutional moment for sure. And I appreciate you mentioning some of those additional resources. We're going to be providing additional resources on the website, so we'll make sure to add those to the list. If you wouldn't mind, conclude us out with a summary. I hear a call to action in there, which is, there's a lot we can do. Some of that may be within our profession, some of it may be pro bono, and some may be technically outside of our 9 to 5, but a part of being involved. And I would certainly advocate for folks to be members of the ABA and get involved in our section. We're just, a little over a few months into this administration. So looking out and sort of painting the picture, based on your career, where we go from here, give us the good news of what's possible. I think a lot of folks are definitely focused right now on where this will go if this doesn't work. But help us inspire those folks that if they only have 1 hour a week because they've got full caseloads and they've got families and they're raising kids and they're already volunteering at their local bar association, what can that 1 hour do that will make a difference for our democracy?
Let me start with the easy part.
Okay.
Teach your children, teach your children's children, lecture at a local high school, write letters to the editor of your local paper. This is really not normal, and we have to call it as such. For lawyers, there's individual representation, and then there's class representation, and then there's institutional representation. In the United States, we play out most of our moral issues in courts. We are a litigious society. And in one sense, that's a relief now. If there were not courts and lawyers to basically announce what the constitutional lines are, imagine how much trouble we would be in. But beyond teaching and lawyering and speaking out, I really counsel resistance in every way that we can, because this is, I might often ask if this is a constitutional crisis.
Yes.
And the definition of a constitutional crisis is if the government is disobeying orders, saying the judge says X and they say, I'm not gonna abide by that. I define a constitutional crisis long before that point. I define a constitutional crisis by a government that is hoping we're not looking, that is trying to do things now, hoping to, as they say, flood the zone with so much illegality that we'll be inured to it and we'll be paralyzed. This is a constitutional crisis. We're in it now. The notion, frankly, in the Harvard case that the government could say that they criticize the university for its hiring decisions, that Harvard has hired radical left idiots who are capable of teaching failure. Harvard can't be, this is not even close to any legitimate ground of criticism, much less legal action against Harvard. And we have to call it for what it is. I go crazy when I watch television and people describe this as somehow on the one hand, on the other hand, there's only one hand here. There's only one. When the government wants Harvard to hire a critical mass of new faculty, provide viewpoint diversity as they define it, reform its recruitment, screening, and admission of students. That is a takeover. That is not a fair request of an American university, and we all should call that. So we need to call it out and act in every corner of where we can act.
Thank you. Judge Nancy Gertner, thank you very much for your thoughts and shedding light on clearly the consequences of the judiciary should the actions continue. And clearly, Judge Gertner, still, you are an unrepentant activist and
Thank you.
hopefully inspiring many more to continue to do the same. To everyone who has joined us today, thank you for being a part of this important dialogue. The issues we've explored are complex and challenging, but by coming together in spaces like this, we're taking meaningful steps towards progress. Remember, the work doesn't stop here, and you heard Judge Gertner encourage us to take action in our communities, in our workplaces, and also within the ABA. So stay engaged. Join the American Bar Association Civil Rights and Social Justice section if you're not a member already. Feel free to visit our website, follow us on social media, explore any upcoming events, and consider joining one of our committees to help shape the work you're doing. You can find us at ambar.org. That's ambar.org/CRSJ. Once again, thank you for watching. Keep fighting. Together we can and we will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.